All right, so we are now officially called to order. I don't think we need introductions tonight. We'll move right ahead with our agenda. One thing I just want to move around for Jen's benefit. She has to, that is board member Jen, may have to leave a little early, so we're going to move the conversation on the facilities master plan dialogues up a little higher in the agenda. No public comment, I assume? All right. Okay, how about a motion to approve the minutes of March 18th?
I'll first.
Yeah. Any changes, anything anybody wants to do to it? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? We have one abstention. Chip. All right, now we are at the bills.
I move that we approve the bills of March 25th that Mary and I signed for the general fund of $136,623.28 plus payroll expense of $4,811.74 for a total of $141,435.02. And today, April 1st, Chip and I signed general fund of $76,603.67, plus payroll expenses of $1,557,244.05 for a total of $1,633,972.72. There was a motion.
There was a motion already, yes. Is there a second? Second. Second? Yep. Any questions? All those in favor of paying the bills as read, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? And here's the numbers. All right, we are moving right along here at rapid speed. So here we are in Bridgeport, which means another presentation about another one of our schools. And Jen, come and take it away for us, please. And actually, you probably should introduce yourself since we're not all...
Yes, sir, I will. And I'm wavering between wanting to move rapidly, but also wanting to take my time.
Take your time.
I've been, okay. I am Deb Pockett, the principal here at Bridgeport. This is my 4th year and finally here. Prior to being here, I was at Mom's for 3 years, so it's definitely bittersweet that it's my last. But I am excited to share a lot of the work that we've done this year at Bridgeport. So what I have is we, at the beginning of this year, worked as a staff to develop a school-wide goal that we all wanted to focus in on. And after a lot of discussion, that school-wide goal became about taking, for the first 2 to 3 years I was here, we worked really hard on shifting the internal climate. It was a climate that was very fragmented in many ways. The way I've described it before in using a metaphor is that kind of like there was a dining room table, but everybody had taken their plate and gone back to their room to eat. So my goal was to get everyone back to the table. And we worked really hard on that, and we made a lot of progress with that. And so this year, our goal became about pushing that out a little bit more to the community, connecting more with the community. It's a small community, so there's only so many relationships we can develop, but we looked at ways to develop that relationship within Bridgeport and also within the larger ACSD community. So I'm going to kind of take you through ways that we did that and ways that we worked on that. Before we do that, though, another thing I want to talk about is we do a lot of different mindfulness activities in our classrooms. We work a lot on body breaks. We talk a lot about recess and how much recess to have and when to have recess and how long it takes to get ready for recess in the winter as compared to heading out in the spring when they're as little as they are. We also realized quickly that it wasn't just about body breaks for us, that our kids, as much as they needed body breaks and movement, also in many instances had a really hard time bringing themselves back down after that stimulation of a body break. And so we began looking at different guided meditations, guided relaxations, yoga practices, and in different classrooms, teachers have found different ways to incorporate that in ways that are developmentally appropriate and appeal to the kids. So I want to give you a couple samples of those. I can share this slideshow too because these are linked in here. Our kindergarten does yoga every day at the end of the day.
Cosmic Kids.
And they use Cosmic Kids. And it's a British woman who takes them through different yoga poses. She has longer videos and then she has 2 to 3 minute ones. And they let me know today that their favorites, if you want to try them out at any point, are sandwich pose, giraffe pose, and surfer pose. I'm not going to make you do the entire thing or watch the entire thing, but I do want to give you just a little sample.
Sandwich pose. I love sandwiches. We're coming to sit down on our bottoms with our legs out long. We start with our bottom slice of bread, bending our knees a little bit so we can reach our arms up and fold forwards, laying it down. Ready? Ooh. Now, sandwich pose is really good for calming our minds, making a little bit of quiet in our day, and for stretching the backs of our legs and our backs. It's very good. Now, we need to put some...
So she's fantastic. The kids quickly remember the way that she describes it. Using food is super helpful. So it gets to a point where Miss Way can ask the kids what they want to do and they know the pose they want to do. It's also really entertaining to listen to them try and mimic her British accent and say it the same way she does. Now, needless to say, if you tried Cosmic Kids in the 3rd or 4th grade classroom or the 5th or 6th grade classroom, it certainly might not get the same amount of seriousness. So our 1st and 2nd grade classroom uses a lot of Go Noodle, but that's more for a body break, some movement in the classroom. Our 3rd and 4th grade classroom has began using Just Me. And I thought a lot today about taking us through the entire 7-minute one that he does here, but that does seem a little bit long, so I'll give you a couple minutes to get a taste of it, and then we'll move on.
Inspired with each breath I rise, ayy, feel the fire inside, yeah. Inspired with each breath I rise, ayy, the fire won't die, ayy. Inspired with each breath I rise, ayy, feel the fire inside, yeah. Inspired with each breath I rise, ayy, the fire won't die.
What's up, y'all? Just me, man. Itty bop bop, boy. Today, we're going to do a little mindfulness practice where we send out a whole lot of love to ourselves, to our loved ones, and to everybody in the whole world, all right? So, let's just get straight to it. Now, make sure, first and foremost, that you're sitting up nice and tall, with your shoulders relaxed and rolled down your back, all right? And if you're in a chair, you just put your feet flat on the floor. And if you're already seated on the floor, just cross your legs and crisscross applesauce, all right? The next thing you're gonna do, you gotta do something with these hands. So let's have your palms either facing up or down in your lap, all right? Now, let's start by moving our focus inside. Now, I'm gonna invite you to close your eyes, or you can focus on a spot on the floor right down in front of you without dropping your chin, okay? Now, I'm gonna keep my eyes open because I gotta keep a lookout what's going on in the room with you, okay? So just know that. When you open your eyes, I'm there. Now get yourself comfortable as possible, all right? So you're relaxed in your body and awake in your mind. Y'all ready? All right, here we go. So let's start first with some breathing just so that we can like settle into this practice, okay? So breathing in. Breathing out. Again, breathing in. Breathing out. One more time. Let's breathe in. Breathing out. Y'all keep breathing in and out. And we're gonna get started here. sending our love. So you're gonna bring your hands to your heart, your eyes still closed. And let's start by saying some loving, kind things to ourselves first. All right? I'm gonna say some things out loud, and you can say them to yourself in your head or in a soft whisper. Okay? So repeat after me. I am healthy. I am strong. I am loved. I am special. I am important. I love myself. I love myself to the fullest. I have a mind, and with that mind, I have power. So I'm going to use it. So now let's take a mindful breath in, breathe out. And now we're going to send some love.
It's hard to pause him because I really enjoyed listening to his voice. I think for me, the point is when it comes to mindfulness, because we also do something in every faculty meeting, and at times we've done guided meditations or guided relaxation. At other times we've played games. I think the mindfulness piece is all about slowing down and connecting with each other as humans, and it's important that we find a way to do that works for the people that we're working with. And it's also important that teachers value that and model it with a certain level of seriousness. So like when they're doing the yoga in kindergarten, there's definitely some giggles and some laughs. It's not a serious time. Sorry. So that's an important part of our practice that we've done just to build community within our classrooms. We sometimes do this with combined classes. Back to the goal. So starting in September, most of our classrooms kicked off their school-wide goals with, the school-wide goal with IB units because we realized it all came together pretty well. In pre-K, they started with their Who We Are unit, which really focused on community, routines, procedures. Kindergarten was how we organize ourselves, which was also about routines and rules. 1, 2, and 3, 4 started their Who We Are units. Coming at it from very different ways. The 3, 4 Who We Are unit was really science-based, and so they started out with body systems, but then moved into the brain and self-awareness and creating a positive learning environment, so it took a really interesting path. And 5, 6 started out with how we organized ourselves and focused a lot on fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Another thing that happened right off the bat in September, school-wide, we're doing our responsive classroom, we're modeling, we're teaching, we're practicing the learner profile, open house and welcoming the community in. And this year was the first year that we attended Starbase with Shoreham, which was great. We did a couple of things this year where we combined either with Shoreham or Mary Hogan or Cornwall, and I found that those instances for our kids to do things with kiddos from other schools was pretty powerful. October, we moved on. I think the perspective taking art is still up outside the kindergarten classroom if you wander down that way. They moved into continuing their How We Organize Ourselves unit. Part of it, a piece of it, was how we respond to art and perspective taking. So they did some of their own artwork with paint and water and straws and blowing the paint, and then they stopped to look at it to see what they saw in their drawings, and then they put those drawings up in the hallway and invited other people to take a look at them and write what they saw in the drawings. So that was also a really interesting piece, and again, any of those moments where our kiddos in different grades are working together and communicating is powerful because it brings everybody a little bit closer. Also in October, our 3rd and 4th grade classroom took a trip to Dead Creek with the Cornwall kiddos as part of their How We Express Ourselves unit. It was the first time that we've done that, and that was a pretty positive experience for the kids, other than the fact that it was really cold and rainy and we were probably underdressed. But aside from that, it was good. School-wide, we had a lot going on in October. We did our annual fun run, which we've done for 3 years now. Our first book fair of the year. PTO kicked off with their trunk or treat. And we also did our fire safety unit again and invited the Bridgeport Fire Department in, which always used to happen and has sort of disappeared. So We had a great day. It was beautiful. Kids got to dress up. Kids got to play with the hoses. But that was another community connection piece that was important. November, we moved into, pre-K started working on their fine motor skills. We did Operation Gratitude for our veterans, which was facilitated by our 5-6 students. We also had our Thanksgiving meal where we invited family members in for Thanksgiving, and that was very successful. It was a full house, very full house. December was either really busy or just had a lot of photos I wanted to use. But we had, our PTO did our bird book distribution. So all of our kiddos got to choose 2 to 3 books that they took home with them over vacation. Pre-K started working on identifying and writing the alphabet. We also did our 3-on-3 staff versus students basketball tournament. And then 5-6 is a long-standing, actually 6th grade, this year was 5-6, is a long-standing tradition of gifts for giving at the holiday season. And kiddos pick a country and they present on the country. And then they have to, with the entire student body, we do in the morning, they present foods, they cook the foods, they prepare the foods, they feed us the foods. There's a lot of sugar. They pick the sweeter recipes. But again, the 5-6 students prepare it, they have to plan for it, they have to get the materials for it. Ms. Thurber might do a lot of that too. And then there's a craft component of that, and they make these crafts being led by the students in grades 5 and 6, and they complete their crafts, and the whole idea is they take these crafts home and they're things that they can use to give to their family members and friends as gifts. January, we were just outside a lot. Skating rink, the fire department did the skating rink. It was used a lot by our PE classes. It was used a lot by families after school hours. Almost every day that I left, I think in the month of January, there were families and kiddos out there using it. Another thing I'll talk a little bit more about, we have buddies. Our pre-K and 5-6 class are buddies, and so they worked on building structures for the pre-K IB unit. So that's what the little guy in the middle there is showing off, is his structure he built. And he is actually a Shoreham student, so we will lose him after this year because he will head to Shoreham for kindergarten. We had the Jackie Nenow from Friendship Now came in and presented to all of our classes about respectful relationships. That was incorporated into our guidance program. February, apparently we did a lot of dressing up. So down in the right-hand corner, you have Miss Way's class on the 100th day. Kindergarten and 1-2 really celebrate the 100th day. Ms. Way has worn that same costume for 4 years now. But they enjoy the dressing up. And then we also had our readathon going on in February. And so we had a dress as your favorite character day. So it looks like we did a lot of dressing up. Another thing we did in February was the Global Day of Play. Ms. Thurber presented this to us last year. And last year it ended up being, due to snow days, it was just the older kids for half a day. The idea behind it is that our kiddos' days are so structured and we have so many rules and routines that sometimes taking time to navigate the unstructured time, and I think that is really important out here. I think our children often go home at the end of the day, and because we are such a rural area, they are home and they stay home. And so gathering to play doesn't happen a whole lot, and learning how to play when there aren't adults around and what to do when we disagree on the rules or when there's no adult there to intervene is a skill we have to create moments to practice. So we had our Global Day of Play. It was an entire day. It was pre-K through 6. We were in classes till 9. Then we had free playtime. We did an all-school lunch and an all-school recess, some more playtime, and then we went back to our classrooms at 2. And some of the cutest stuff was just watching, like the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th graders, when they're told they can go anywhere, are happy to go anywhere. Whereas the kindergarten students kind of walk out and peek around and they're not sure and they think they're gonna, so it was a good day. We also wrapped up the readathon with each of our highest readers in their class being able to throw pie at the principal. So they found that highly entertaining, except for the pre-K kiddo who wouldn't do it. He really thought he was gonna get in trouble. I offered to help. So the pre-K teacher did it, and she thoroughly enjoyed it. In March, we went to see the the Kodo Taiko drummers at the Flynn, the entire school went. I wasn't supposed to take that picture. You're not supposed to take pictures, but. We also had a visitor from Middlebury College. Youssef is down in the right-hand corner. He came in and spoke to our 3, 4, and 5, 6 classrooms about Moroccan drumming. And all of that is sort of tying into our artist in residence that's coming next week, which is the Taiko drummers. Additionally, as part of their IB unit, kindergarten and 1-2 went to the art center, the art museum over at Middlebury College, and the Ragmala dance performance. And first grade came back and then created their own storytelling dance that they're still working on. Additionally, Bridgeport has community suppers throughout the winter, and so every year our staff hosts a community supper, so we did that in the month of March. April, there's a few things going on, but right now we are working, for the first time, we are first time in my tenure here, part of the Courageous Stage work with Town Hall Theater. And so our kiddos have been rehearsing and practicing, and we'll be part of that on Friday. And they're really excited. This is their sword scene practice. They've really done a good job with it. And I'm grateful to Steve Lindeman, who reached out at the beginning of the year. Like I said, this is not something that we were part of, and he reached out at the beginning of the year and said, we're doing this, do you want to partner up with us, as you're one of the only schools that aren't doing it? And so we jumped on it. Town Hall Theater wrote a grant to cover the cost for Bridgeport to participate this year, and we're picking up the cost of the buses, and I certainly hope that this is something that they're able to continue. So our performance is this Friday. Just a couple quick notes about things coming. Again, the artist in residency, the Shakespeare performance, currently another book fair going on. May is a lot of assessments. So we talked today too about the amount of assessments and making sure that we incorporate some extra time outdoors, some extra body breaks, some downtime, to sort of make the assessments feel a little less heavy. We also have Spring into the Arts, and we have a group going for swim lessons at Middlebury College. And then June, we do a field days to kind of back up to the fun run. We've got our spring concert. As of last year, we did our spring concert outdoors in June, and it was fantastic because we lucked out with incredible weather. So we had things set up out here. People brought lawn chairs and blankets. It was wonderful, and it will be wonderful again as long as it's nice. We have some field trips at the end of the year and our last day. Some of the all year long things that go on that we build community with, like I mentioned, the buddies. We have our 5, 6, and pre-K buddies. It's a really important time in that our kids truly do shine when they're taking care of each other. Even our kiddos that might have challenging moments throughout the day for other reasons, when they're with their pre-K buddies, they really show the best of themselves. And we see it like at breakfast in the morning when pre-K comes in and they're sitting over here, the older buddies sort of gravitate over and end up eating breakfast with them, so it creates some great relationships. We had one pre-K kiddo that's really struggled to come to, he gets here and then just lots and lots and lots of tears, and as soon as mom's out the door, he's fine. So, but the transition's pretty tricky, and his older buddy coming and sitting with him to have breakfast has actually really helped, so that's been a huge positive thing. Everybody wins. We do Everybody Wins. Again, so important that the relationships that are created between the mentors and the kids are really invaluable. It's one of the only moments in which we have members of the community coming in during the school day, so it feels great. And then we've done our Family Connections evenings, largely driven by Dana Allen, who is our school-based clinician through CSAC. And so she did a potluck supper early on for that. We brought in Annie Burmeister from Women's Safe, who is the one that does the Act 1 training with the kids now. And March, she did 2 sessions, kind of like the Okay, You've Got This, because she's also doing that in other schools, the Building Resiliency in Your Children. And there's another one coming up in April. So our faculty meetings, we have a couple things that we do all the time at every meeting. And I think in general, our points of focus this year have been around trauma and equity. And then the phrase that came up that sort of encompasses a lot of it is self-awareness, you know, both about those topics, about ourselves as professionals, thinking a lot about our responses to children and how our responses to children can alter that interaction. So there's some specific topics. We've talked about Alice, but we talk about Alice sort of in the framework of safety and getting ready for that. Today we were actually going to, at our safety, or at our staff meeting, do an Alice drill with just adults with no kids in the building. But I forgot that we had the book fair, so it turned out we had parents and students, and so we decided that would not be a good idea. But we did take some time for people to go to their rooms and look at their rooms, think about barricading. We've thought a lot about our location and evacuating and what that looks like, considering we're sitting in the middle of a bunch of fields. So that's an ongoing discussion with a lot of ongoing thinking. We've talked about me coming in with each of the teachers prior to the end of the year to co-teach or just talk a little bit about all of the ways that we work to keep our kids in our schools safe, and presenting the idea of barricading within that context. Like all the little things we do. The teachers know how to contact your parents know how to contact the school. We lock the doors, people sign in, we take care of each other, so that it's not presented in a way that generates fear or that generates, you know, a feeling that it's unsafe, but this is just one more step that we're adding to the list. So again, a lot of it comes back to the goal. You know, I tried to break down, and I'm not going to read through all of it, but break down the things that we do that are building those internal relationships. I really do believe that idea that relationships mitigate stress. I couldn't find is that Dave Melnick? I think he may have said that. So I think I have to credit that to Dave Melnick. I couldn't find it. A lot of the work that we're doing is hard and stressful, and I think we could have a lot of conversations about whether today's world is any more stressful than yesterday's world, or maybe just different. But the relationships are what make it possible for us to deal with and cope with that stress. And so building those relationships internally and with the larger community, to me, is what makes it possible for us to do the work that we're doing. So we've done a lot of things to build the student-to-student relationships, student to adult, adult to adult, taking care of each other as a staff is really important. We've done a lot of things to connect with the community. We really, our relationship with Pratt's has gotten a lot stronger this year. We did a giving tree at the holiday time of year, and they were great about having the tree down there, helping us facilitate the gifts, helping us get them out to the families. At the end of the year last year, they created these lunches on a Frisbee for all of our students to have as a treat for the end of the year. And they reached out this fall expressing that they just really wanted to build the connection that they felt they used to have with the school. And just a few more of those. I think the family connections evenings have been really important. The attendance varies. We open it up to Shoreham parents also. And we've had Shoreham parents along with Bridgeport parents. Some nights it's, 6 to 8 to 10, other nights it's 2. But we have seen direct evidence of a family or a parent attending that evening and participating in that discussion, again, feeling more connected, and then we see an impact on the behavior, the overall well-being of the students. So I think there's very much a sense that it's worth it, whether it's 2 or 10 or 20. And that's it.
Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions?
Thoughts?
I do, the stuff you talked about in the beginning, all the mindfulness and body breaks and yoga, are you finding that that's making a noticeable difference, or has it been too little time with it?
I find it makes a noticeable difference in that when we can have a common vocabulary for reminding a kiddo how to calm or how to slow down, that they will do it. It takes time, and if that is not something that they practice outside of school, we have a limited number of hours, but we very much do encourage them to The breathing is the biggest, reminders to slow down the breathing. We'll ask students to put their hand over their heart because you can feel their little hearts racing when they're escalated. But I think that's an important piece, is to be able to slow down. I think when children live in chronic stress, that amygdala is firing so often and that body is so hypervigilant that it's not necessarily a body break they need, but the ability to find sort of that peace and be centered. So, hope so.
Thank you.
Yes,
Jen, I noticed on the school report that you are going to increase the go preschool just for 4-year-olds next year instead of the 3. Can you tell us why that decision?
We met, so 2 years ago, we had both 3 and 4, and we had about 8 kids total. And then for last year, we decided to just run with it and make it as big as we could. And we can have 17 children in that room per licensing regulations. So we actually have a total of 20 kids because there's 2 different groups of 3 3-year-olds. So we did that this year. Our in-house preschool team, a special educator, an SLP, the teacher, and myself sat and talked about it and reflected on this year. And in reflecting and doing some research and considering the needs of the students, over half of the students are either on IEPs or receiving speech services, felt that in order to provide the best quality pre-K experience with the staffing we have would be to reduce it to 12. And in doing so, we decided to focus on the 4-year-olds because we know we have probably more than 12 4-year-olds that will want to be in the program.
So I'm sorry, would you remind us what the configuration is this year and what it's proposed to be next year?
This year, our 4-year-olds, we have 14 4-year-olds that are here Monday through Friday for full days. And then we have 3 3-year-olds that are here Monday and Tuesday from 7:45 until 1. And another set of 3 3-year-olds that are here Wednesday and Thursday for that same short day.
Okay.
So it won't have a big impact on our current population. We have had a couple of people in the community who are hoping to have their 3-year-olds in the program call.
So they'll find something else?
I hope so.
So next year, no 3-year-olds,
No
just focusing on 4-year-olds.
12 4-year-olds.
And is there a waiting list for that?
Not yet. We are taking applications and we're numbering them as they come in and we'll look at them and we'll sit down on May 1st and develop a list. We don't have enough yet to have a waiting list. I predict we probably will.
Yeah. And it's open to Bridgeport and Shoreham only at this point?
No, we'll give preference to those that are currently in our 3-year-old program.
Yep.
Beyond that, we will give preference to Bridgeport residents. And then after that, we open it up to all ACSD families.
Okay.
So we get very few from other towns because
Yeah.
transportation is not super feasible. But we did have a couple last year from Salisbury and Cornwall that expressed interest, but we already had a waiting list.
You did,
So they
okay.
looked for something else.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate it. And you are returning to your first love, middle school?
I am returning to my adolescence. Oddly enough, I'm looking forward to. Yes.
Good luck.
And I have grand plans for that commute time. I'm going to exercise in the morning. I'm going to read at night. I'll let you know how that goes.
Something's going to
Something will eat it up. We know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen, are you prepared to talk
I
now?
mean, I can definitely move, but I'm going to need some help from my friends. If
You got
there's
it.
other information that they know about that I don't.
Take it away.
Okay. So the dialogues, we have hot off the presses posters. I have to post these in Salisbury tomorrow, but if you want to kind of take a look at them, let me get my computer back on. So I can go out. So those went out. The Addison Independent has been contacted as far as getting out there. Peter's letter has gone out to all residents. Has anybody gotten that yet? Yeah. You've gotten the letter twice. I have.
I'm going to stand through this.
Okay.
Me too. I got it 3 times.
So are we getting it for each child?
No, I got it because my job, I'm on a lot of lists.
So maybe that's it, maybe it's a
I think I
school
must have got it
member
on
and
a
as
board
parent.
list and then on a parent list.
Yes, that's how I
Yeah.
got
So
it.
is it only parents? Because I didn't get one.
It's supposed to be to all ACSD residents.
The mailing? The mailing, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I haven't got
Oh,
it.
no, I didn't get a mail, I meant the email.
Oh, okay, yes,
Email.
yes. Yes, so the email letter came out to all of us, and then there should be one letter, like
Oh,
a physical
okay.
letter mailed to each residence. So that, Mary, that email
Okay.
came to the school board, but also to the families that are, in the school system, and families that have opted into email, or people who have opted into
Right.
email from ACSD. And then there's a paper letter that I think went to press, was today, Monday, so it was last Tuesday maybe, went to, the store to be put together, that was hopefully gonna go out by that Friday. So we should all be getting it at some point this week. So that's good, so the communication's going out. The steering committee, the Facilities Master Plan Steering Committee is meeting Wednesday morning to iron out the dialogues themselves, finalize the process. Bob will be there to make sure everybody's aware of their roles.
When's that meeting?
On Wednesday morning from 8 to 11.
Yep. Got it.
Yeah, and so nothing's, that's basically the update at this point. There hasn't been a lot of change since the last time we talked, other than the Facilities Master Plan, or Steering Committee is gonna be meeting before these first round of dialogues, just to make sure that we're all ready to roll. And you might see on the flyer, Jory noticed it, that we are inviting childcare for at least one of them. We're asking people to RSVP, just so that we know that in fact there will be people that need it, and how many people will be needing it, so we can adequately staff it. So that is good, so thanks for that suggestion. Yeah, and otherwise, of course, like we've asked before, if the more of us that can be there, the better, to hear and be at each of the tables for the breakout and just show our interest to the community.
So no designated roles to board members, just a presence and help facilitate the conversation as like before. It is.
Right, yeah, I think Bob was going to kind of put together some sort of a document like he did before to just remind everybody. I feel like this time around we're stressing more of our role being more of a listening role, and trying not to steer the conversation, other than, just to kind of remind people what the process is if people are confused, but just to really be at the tables to hear what people have to say, and that the steering committee would be more of that kind of guiding the conversation. And I think because of the structure of the conversation, I believe Bob will also kind of keep the conversation rolling with, let's talk, about this, and this, and keep people on time and all that kind of thing.
Good.
Did Mary and Peter have anything else that you want to add?
I would just add, I think probably after the steering committee on Wednesday, there'll be more clarity on roles. So I think probably something to the board, maybe from Bob, would be helpful, just to kind of finalize, here's how the flow is going to go, here's what I'm doing, Bob, here's what Peter's going to do.
Yeah.
Just to kind of solidify for everyone. So I think I'll probably suggest that to Bob.
That'd be good.
I'm also meeting with Ben Merrill, who is helping with some of the front-end writing. He's taking a lot of the documentation we have, so we're building the parts of the plan that we can, so that we don't start at the end of May and try to finish by the end of June. So we're on track there, and I'll be facilitating that process with Ben.
Great.
Who's Ben?
He is actually the person who helped out with the strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you see, is the format going to be very similar to the last ones, just in terms of maybe a presentation from Bob and me, and then moving into table conversations?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously there'll be some different, a little bit different, but that's the idea. And I think
The one difference with this one is this is all going to be at the high school, and we believe the presentation portion will actually be in the auditorium.
Oh, okay.
And then people will move to tables after.
In the
And
cafeteria?
we're going to try to, because the last time people sort of came in and sat, where they were comfortable, and we had to kind of make people move. So this idea of going into the auditorium first, and then perhaps giving some sort of a number or something like that as people exit the auditoriums, that they'll be a little bit more randomized for their conversations.
Great.
Is where I believe it's going. We'll have the final on Wednesday.
All right.
Or shortly after.
Will this be televised?
Yes.
They have contacted, I'm not
Okay.
sure which one.
So I talked to Kurt Broderson, and he said, I'll be there as a parent, I'm happy to record. I said, that'd be great. He said, and he asked if they were all the same, and I said, yes.
So we'll probably do one.
I think I'll just do one, yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you all for your work on this, and it'll be a busy week next week, if everybody can make it.
Good. And the following week.
And the following week, yeah, there's only one the following week.
Yeah.
All right. Report of the superintendent. We all received a written board report, as usual. Any questions on that?
I will say it was very thorough. It took me a long time
Yeah.
to get through that report, but it was
I'm glad you're reading it.
very
Yeah.
interesting.
No, it is actually, I think it's quite helpful.
I was amazed on the length but how much detail, how much is going on.
Yeah.
And
There's a
I'm like,
lot going on.
I'm sitting on this board and I didn't even know half of that was going on, so it made me think I've got to check the calendar more, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, an amazing amount of work for all of you.
That was part of one of my questions too, was it, comments, was the length of it. I started reading it and it's long. But once we read it, where does it go?
It's preserved in immortality on our website.
Okay. Do we ever know how, if anybody else reads it? I'm just asking that.
We don't. I mean, I think whoever looks at the board, yeah.
To write it all,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
And to be that detailed, and I'm not saying I don't appreciate that, but I don't,
We take some of that information and put it into the district newsletter, which we began last year, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback on that. So that tends to be a place where you'll see a couple of schools highlighted. We talked about the facilities master plan, we talked about IB development, so that's kind of where we put a spin and put a story on it. Maybe there's a way on the website or something we could highlight these, like pull them out of. A lot of this information gets into the school newsletters. So if you read the MUHS newsletter or the Bridgeport newsletter or others, a lot of the information that, for example, principals put in, they're also sharing with their communities too.
do we get those?
I think they just had to be
Those,
the parents of
Yeah,
kids.
well, that's what I
Yeah.
assume. I guess my point is that it's a lot of work to make it up.
Yeah,
And it's a
yeah.
lot of work to put it together, and I just want to make sure that it gets to whoever it needs to get to, at least for them to have the option to read it, okay?
I personally would like to see it highlighted on the website, because it's got a roundup of everything, and if
And that's.
we need to
really
care
my
about,
point,
or
is that-
parents need to care more about than just their own school. So, yeah, 'cause it is a great document.
And for any new parent coming into the district, they're going to be looking at that website and they're going to be, that would be a great sell point, right?
wowed, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You'd be wowed by that.
yeah.
But I also think a lot of people that aren't associated with schools are interested in what happens in schools. And we've talked about ways to, push information out, but at the very least, if like you're suggesting to put it on the website, if people are interested in finding out about the schools, then they can at least read something like this, which is, it is really well written and put together.
Maybe we could retitle it too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Give it a little more kapow.
Yeah, board report doesn't probably, got other things to do.
Happening in our awesome schools.
I don't know.
Mueller report.
The Mueller report.
They're building that.
And I can't remember if it made the news or the board report, but I will just say that the senior play made the most money of any senior play. It's very good for, and it's even despite being snowed out one night.
It's a great
postponed.
show.
It was very cute, very fun. But very good for project graduation, which benefits from all the money.
Silas had a good time.
He had a very good time, yes. All right. Speaking of Kapow titles, let's talk about approving the continuous improvement plan.
Okay. So Caitlin's going to be giving a brief update on the continuous improvement plan. This is an action item. This is required by the state for the board to approve this. This is part of the AOE's response to Fed requirements to receive federal funding. This is one of the things that they need to get from every school district and then show the feds, look, we did follow through. We have experienced over the years various degrees of intention from the AOE in terms of how important this is. There used to be a lot of funding attached to it that has, in terms of how that funding flows to schools, that's shifted a lot over the years. They're, I think, right now a bit in flux in terms of how they're going to do this process going forward. We're going, and I think Caitlin's doing a great job of reading the tea leaves for what they want, even when they don't communicate what they want. And with that, take it away.
So after we talked about the lovely and lively reports that we like to produce here in ACSD, this is not one of those.
You can tell us right up front. Huh?
It's very dry, it follows a very specific template. So I intend to use 4 acronyms as I talk about this, and if I use others and they're confusing, let me know. So AOE is Agency of Education, specifically the Vermont-based Agency of Education. They're the ones who tell us we need to do this. CIP is Continuous Improvement Plan. We are required to do one at the district level and one for every school. It was a new process last year, a new version of an old process that was rolled out last year. This is the template that they have given us, and we were not allowed to apply for any consolidated federal program funding, Title I, Title II, Title IV, those ones, until every one of our schools had submitted these, even the ones that don't qualify for title funding. So we have to jump through this hoop. The other acronyms are, and as we do that, we're trying to anchor it to real work that we're doing in the district, so we're not just generating something new to check the box. So AOE, CIP, SBAC, which is just the testing in math and literacy, and YRBS, which is the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. So those are the 4 acronyms that I intend to use. This is the district level CIP, and I think you all have, I have a couple extra copies if anybody doesn't have one at their fingertips.
Can't get on, so.
They make us go through a process, and I want to just sort of run you through the structure. I don't want to do a close read of this now, but if you have questions and want me to slow down, that's totally fine. They have us go through this process where we identify our vision, and rather than come up with a brand new vision for this program, for this report, we've taken the mission and vision from the strategic plan, the ones that we share at the district level. And then we've said, okay, so that's a 5-year plan, and this is really a 1-year plan. How do we take from that and just dial it in and say, okay, so this year we're going to focus here. And so that's what this next section is about. Okay, so we're really focusing on number 1, raising the academic achievement of students with particular attention to students eligible for free or reduced price lunch. And number 2, improving a sense of safety, belonging, and personal agency for all students. So those are the 2 things that are much smaller than the whole big strategic plan in those goals that we're focused on. And you can see through this, we had to report which stakeholders built this plan. These are the people who were engaged in the plan building last year when the process was new. It gets updated. We revisited it this year. And then if you flip, we have to go, so now I'm looking at page 2, we have to go through this process of identifying our broad areas of focus, our priority problems, our problems of practice, where we said, okay, we've got an achievement gap between, statistically, between students who are not eligible to receive free and reduced price lunch and those who are. And then the other one was this sense of safety, belonging, and agency, where actually we use the YRBS survey as sort of our benchmark data for this. And compared to Vermont, we're not doing badly at all, but we still see room for improvement on some of those target items that we talk about there. We then have, so having identified those problems that we want to focus on, we need to do the root cause analysis. There are processes and all sorts of, templates that we need to fill out. So we did that behind the scenes. It's captured in this data packet that I haven't handed you because I don't really want to make you dive that deeply right now. But if you want to look more closely, I'm happy to share that with you. And then it gets a little bit more interesting on page 3. So we've defined 3 goals that we're working on. The first one on page 3, right under prioritized goals, says that we are going to increase the percentage of students who are eligible for free and reduced price lunch and who achieve proficient or proficient with distinction status on the SBAC literacy. Go over the course of multiple years. We said we wrote this in 2017, we said by 2019, we reanalyzed the data for 2018, last year's data. So we said we're going to do that for goal 1. For goal 2, we said the same thing for math. We're trying to raise the achievement of those students who qualify for free and reduced price lunch. And then if you flip forward to goal number 3 on page 5, this is the one where we looked at the youth risk behavior survey, and we found items that we thought could stand as proxy items for a student's sense of safety, belonging, and agency in the schools. And so we were really interested in this. You'll see it struck out. Teachers really care about me and give me lots of encouragement. And at the high school, 63% of students in 2015 said that was true. At the middle school, 73% said that was true. And those were pretty good numbers, but we said that's not 100%, so there's room for improvement there. That was based on 2015 data. When we got our 2017 data, that item no longer existed. So we couldn't compare anymore. So you can see, though, in my community, I feel like I matter. In 2015, 55% of high school students who completed the survey said that that was true. And in 2017, 2 years later, it's only implemented every 2 years. 70% said that was true. So that's improvement already. In fact, we've already exceeded our goal on that one. So that doesn't mean, great, no problem, we stop. We're still looking at this data. We presented this SBAC and YRBS data in our strategic plan reports annually. So at the end of the year, you'll get a breakdown and you'll get to look at that again, embedded in our big strategic plan report. So that's why I was saying we're not duplicating, or we're not doing new things here. We're trying to take a bite and make it work here. We need for these to connect to the things we write into our grant. We can't grant fund anything that doesn't, in CFP, that doesn't connect to this plan. And so that's why when you see what change can we make that will result in improvement, we have a long list of things that we're working on that we hope will positively impact these things. Over time, we have to, we don't have clarity from the AOE yet on what this looks like, but over time we have to pick elements of that and evaluate how effective they are. So, yeah.
Do you want to explain CFP?
CFP? Oh,
You did, yeah.
Sorry, not going in. I didn't mean to.
Gotcha.
Consolidated programs bundles our title grants into one thing. So it's Title I. We have 4 Title I schools that receive Title I funding. It's Title II and Title IV. Those we receive at the district level. Some of it is pushed into our Title I schools and some of it is spent at the district level. Any questions?
What age do kids take the YRBS?
YRBS is just middle school and high school. Which years is it? Sixth years. Eighth through 12? Thank you. So it doesn't happen in the elementary level, and you'll see if you look at that goal.
Yeah, I read that a little bit.
Yeah, that we are going to look at other data sets, and so we actually are, the current plan is that we're going to be looking at our district equity audit. It asks it doesn't ask the same questions. We were trying not to be redundant, but it asks some that we think might be solid proxy items for that at the elementary level. We're only doing that at 5th and 6th grade, so we won't have early data connected to the school. But we will have some data for the elementary level as soon as this spring. Any other questions?
Are there some specific activities or initiatives that are taking place in the district or at individual schools that you feel are leading to some of the dramatic changes that you're seeing?
Well, which, are you talking about the YRBS dramatic changes?
That one was pretty dramatic.
So, I would only be giving you my personal opinion.
Okay, you're not able to really pinpoint it at your level at this point?
We'll take your personal opinion.
I mean, my personal opinion is that there's quite a lot of positive energy happening in the district and a lot of change happening and a lot of opportunities to engage students in personalized learning and in giving us feedback about how things are happening. So my hope is that sort of systemic positive energy is creating a space where students feel like they matter and feel connected and feel safe. We're certainly doing a lot of work around ALICE training, which directly connects to safety. But in part, I'm being excited about the work that we're doing. And I don't know I don't have a really great way at this point of knowing if that's causing if that's directly affecting these changes. We won't be doing detailed statistical analysis to determine that. We will be doing over time, they're called, here's another acronym, PDSA cycles. So the Agency of Education will require us to do PDSA cycles to evaluate, to take something that we do and evaluate its efficacy based on data. So we'll look at baseline data and we'll look at data afterwards. So it's plan, do, study, act. So we say we are trying to move this far forward. Here's our plan for doing that. We're going to do it and collect data along the way. We'll study that data. And then we'll decide, do we continue because it looks promising? Do we adapt because it's not really getting us there? Do we cease that action because it's not giving us the results we want? And then the action is then acting on one of those. So we will have to do that in phase 2 of this. We're only asking you at this point to approve phase 1. Yeah,
The youth risk survey's been around a long time. It's always, I think there's some cynicism about it as to whether it gets swayed in certainly on different questions. Can you just describe to us maybe the total number of questions I've never seen the actual survey. I've never sat down and taken it. Does it take an hour? Does it take 15 minutes?
I've never implemented it. You have access, they're public reports, so you could actually look at it. Ooh, has anybody in here, can you speak to it a little bit more?
I think students have like 45 minutes to take it, and it usually doesn't take half that long, but
It's just a lot's based on that. And, as far as not only your baseline, but how you're trying to improve. And being a little cynic at times, I just get a little worried that when we read too much into these solid statistics,
Well, the state was
not
working.
just of whether you're loved or not, but, did you smoke pot yesterday? Or whatever, some of the other risk-based types of unprotected sex, all these types of things that you just, how does a child answer?
It is student self-report, and so any survey that relies on self-report is going to have some inherent limitations to the data. Jen, it looked like you wanted to.
No, it's Mary.
No, Jen was right
Oh,
there
Jen.
behind.
Okay.
Mary had her hand up first.
Okay, sorry.
Just to answer Chip's question, it used to have like 112 questions. And they tailored it down, that's my understanding. But it is done through the CDC, so it is well-researched data. I mean, it has a lot of legitimacy and validation behind it. And they do change the questions quite a bit. But one of the questions I saw in your report was about students feeling like they have an opportunity to talk about what goes on in school. And it was low, it was like 54%. So obviously that would be another one where they feel like they're important. And I'm just going to put this in as a little prop for my student on the school board, that this would be a place where they might have to do that, so.
And you'll see we'll share a few more of those items in the strategic plan report. It won't be as narrow as this one. We should hopefully be able to use our district equity data as sort of a counterpoint to this. That's not a statistically valid and reliable. That's just a home.
That's a home version.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, before you jump in, that the state has also been looking at VT Climb to study climate, and they've postponed that to next year, so that may be something, there's information online about that. That may be something that works. I think the plan was for that to work in concert with YRBS. I don't know what additional information that would essentially give. I think there was something that they were going to use to evaluate with it as well. I think that was their intention.
It was the only tool they had forever, the YRBS.
Right.
It's been around for decades.
Right.
Yeah, at least 15 years.
We talked about it.
Oh, I think I took it in high school.
It was in the 90s. Yeah.
Wow, that was a long time.
I'm going to ask if there's another group of students that you could include.
As stakeholders?
Yes, in addition to students eligible for free and reduced price, but who low achievement, low academic achievement, students with learning difficulties.
So we are limited in our data in terms of what we can disaggregate because we can't publicly report anything with an N size fewer than 11. But we could look at special education as a cut point in the data. We also, the agency, the AOE is solving this by pooling, what do they call it? Historically marginalized populations maybe, right? So they're pooling students with some of those indicators that we might be interested in studying, race, ELL status, sorry, that's another one, English language learner status. I'm trying to think what
Poverty.
else is pooled into that.
Poverty?
Poverty might get pooled in, but it's a big enough subset that they might not need to, you think free and reduced is?
Free and reduced is
Part of
best
it.
measure.
I think so.
So
That's how it's an equal
Yeah,
equals
right,
to.
yeah.
So we haven't seen data from the AOE using that disaggregation yet because they haven't published a lot of data this year. Their longitudinal data system is still not fully functional. And so when that's fully functional and they start producing the updated data with those different cut points, we'll have more ability to look at different groups.
And maybe some background for Betty and perhaps Mary. This report, when it was first presented to us, was based on test score data that compared the free and reduced lunch group to other students and special ed and other students. Was that what it was? And then you had identified a big difference, and that was why that difference was what was targeted. That's a very crude way to explain the history, but that was sort of, this isn't the first time we've seen it as a school board. That's what's trying to bring you up to speed a little.
And you'll see, thank you, you'll see in here all of these references to supporting data. Last year we had a really thick packet of data that we started with. So it's sort of, here's a bunch of data. Where do we want to dive in? We did it with administrators. This year, it's a much thinner one. It's just updates based on the data that we decided to carry into this. And again, this is meant to represent a small bite of the big work that we're doing. Any other questions or comments?
Jen, were you going to add something?
I was just going to respond to some of the things that Chip said, and I've heard all of those concerns myself, and I agree with them, and having been in middle school and seeing kids take it. But I think one of the challenges with the YRBS is when you try to take isolated pieces out of it. I think the best way it's read is when you look at the entire thing. Like when you look at the most recent one, you'll see a decline in things that I feel like we've kind of focused on as a society, like underage smoking or drinking, but yet you're seeing a rise in LGBT reports of self-harm or experiencing violence in their relationships. So you see specific issues that you can kind of pull out of it that you realize you need to target. So it's kind of that overall as compared to taking pieces of it.
And as a side note, the Community Partnership Council, I don't know if you guys kind of remember that a little bit, that I also sit on so that I can report some information back to you. Our update last meeting actually was that a group of high school students took time out, like 3 hours of their Saturday, to look at the entire YRBS survey results and identify for themselves some of the data points that were really interesting to them, that they might want to follow up on and kind of, share throughout the school. and, maybe have some further discussion at the high school level. And I believe their intention was to come and share some of that with us as a school board. So just, it's being looked at in other ways, was my point with that.
That'd be great.
That's a great idea, having high school kids look at that.
Because that sort of speaks to your point relative to the big picture a little bit, that if we're being defined, we as the youth taking this risk survey are being defined in this way generally, then this isn't quite right, or this is definitely the way it is, even if there's going to be a swing in the individual questions a little bit.
Right, and they might have a better sense of, does this ring true to what I know the experience to be? And so I think it was a student initiative
And only they can
that
answer
actually
that.
started. Exactly. Yeah, so.
They're the beginning.
So we actually have one of those meetings Wednesday night, Community Partnership Council. So, so I can follow with them and just tell them that. I mentioned it to you all, and that if you would be interested in hearing more.
So you'll have 3 nights out next week.
Hey, look, do we have any sense, since goals 1 and 2, the checkpoint is in June, which is only 4 months away, do you have any sense of how we are?
Yeah, so we will take the SBACs in, most of us in May. The middle school has started, maybe finished them. But most of our schools will test in May. We don't expect to get the data until August or September at the earliest if it comes on time. So we'll be looking, so we always look at SBAC data in the subsequent year. We can see it at the school level pretty quickly thereafter. We can get into the computer and see it, but we don't have those sort of summary reports. And in fact, we're still waiting for some of the SBAC data from last year. It's just that there's a big change in the data system at the AOE this year that has slowed things down. So as far as how we're doing, it's interesting. We last year, some of the examples in there say, let's look at 8th grade, right? And they give that example, and then they compare. So the 2016 8th graders to the 2017 8th graders, that's a completely different cohort of humans, right? And so, in fact, we need, I think it's still valuable to look at those at the grade, but we also need to look at the cohort. And if you, in our data tables, which I'm happy to share, but you can actually, if you look at a diagonal, you can sort of track a cohort over time. And that might be even more interesting, just to look at growth in cohorts. So I'm not going to predict how we'll do. I sure hope we'll just nail it.
Keep her doing.
So we need to take action on this? All right, so how about a motion to approve the continuous improvement plan? The CIP, we'll just call it the CIP.
Second.
All right. Amy. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the continuous improvement plan, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Go get your federal money.
Thanks all. It's so sad. That's okay. You will probably see the school ones too without formal presentation when those are done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take an exit. Does anybody have an awesome place they want to post this? If not, I can take it.
We have one here, which I'll take and put in an awesome place.
Yeah, feel free. I can always get more to post.
Stay at house.
Right.
All right. Thanks so much. Good night.
All right, so under the report of the board, our first item is the superintendent evaluation process timeline. And so as we approach the end of the academic year, we're also sort of approaching the end of that timeline with really the pivotal step or steps taking place in April and potentially May, depending on if we get sidetracked with a lot of the facilities master planning stuff. And Peter, if you wouldn't mind sort of walking through the process from the beginning of the year to where we are today.
Okay. So the document that was created, I think now it's at least 4 years ago, a subcommittee of the ACSU board at the time worked to create this evaluation process, and it's been altered slightly over the years. Essentially, it's grounded in standards and goal setting. The standards are the ISLIC standards, which come from our national standards, which Vermont has adopted. The process, I work on a goal-setting document and a self-reflection at the beginning of the year and a conversation. So we went through that in the fall. I then amass evidence over the course of the year on the 4 standards. I reflect on those standards. The process that we've discussed, and which I think the board discussed in the last meeting in relation to the executive committee, was I would submit my final self-reflection to the executive committee, and I'm planning to do that next week in preparation for either the following board meeting or the first meeting in May. The executive committee will meet in executive session with the full board, and the process currently is I wouldn't be at that meeting to allow the board to have an open conversation about my performance. The executive committee would gather information from the board, would coalesce that into the document, which they would then share with me, either kind of agreeing with my self-assessment, offering other input, and then kind of building that forward into the following year.
So the executive committee is the chair, the vice chair, and the secretary. So then, so we meet with Peter to sort of go over it. We then meet with the board in executive session without the superintendent to discuss among ourselves. And then back to Peter with kind of the board's summation of things. And that also includes discussion about pay raise and contract terms. And that's the process, and that's what's coming up. Okay, so in the document we have here is the entire process.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Any questions on that?
I think this added piece, where you explain it, is really helpful.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, moving right along, we have these 3 policies we need to approve. Do you want to talk about them at all, Mary?
Again, I'm just brand new at this.
You got this.
So Perry presented these. These are required policies, and I believe they've been adopted from the Vermont States, or the School Board Association, isn't it?
E1 and F1.
E1 and F1, and D1
is ours.
Is ours.
Yeah, and an update of the previous policy.
Oh, update of a previous one. Okay.
Is it required that we have a proficiency-based graduation requirements policy?
Yes.
Or that it's our own policy?
We're required to have it. We took the form from the state, but then we have our requirements, which are unique to us.
Okay.
So part of it is, we started with an idea from them, but we've altered it, so it's really ours.
Right, so you personalized it for.
Yep. And this is an amendment, so this was already approved.
Right.
We're amending it. The change is, we initially had 24 credits, we're returning to 23, which is what we've always had at MUHS. And then we combined art and design. So if you look on the number of credits required, art and design is 2. Those were broken out before.
The one thing I had a question about was, there is a comment here about the IB program under notes, but it doesn't spell that out completely in this policy, does it? But this is only just
Yeah, it doesn't
basic
need
requirements
to. Yeah.
to finish high school, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And we have realized there was some misunderstanding because IB calls the diploma program the diploma program.
Yeah.
Some people thought, okay, if I don't do the diploma, because people are saying the diploma, do I still get a diploma? What does it mean? So we've had to do some work to try to help to clarify that you still earn a Middlebury diploma. The diploma program is a totally separate thing.
Yes, it's an unfortunate name. Because
Yeah.
I think you're going to be fighting that battle
Is there a
always.
way to always preface diploma with Middlebury diploma or with
IB, treat the IB
diploma? In other words, to always define which diploma you're talking about?
We could
I don't
maybe
know.
do
I
the
just
IB
thought-
diploma at Middlebury, like the college does.
Yeah, and just for everyone, it's an MUHS graduation diploma.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Because it's very confusing.
Yeah,
I can understand why it would be very,
yeah.
It's totally understandable, yeah, it is confusing, I agree.
And a student who does the IB diploma gets 2 diplomas then, right? They get an MUHS diploma, and then they'll get an IB diploma.
If they pass.
If
They
they
can
pass,
still
right, if
take
they
the
pass.
diploma program and not get
Yes, right.
the diploma,
If they pass,
but.
right.
that's if they pass, if they don't pass the IB diploma program, they may still get
Still get
the Middlebury
Middlebury.
diploma.
And still gain the value of that in getting into
Right.
colleges. I mean, colleges don't know, they won't know their score until after they've already been admitted into college.
That's right.
But by saying.
That's a very interesting point.
In that program,
Yeah,
it looks good.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so we do we have a motion? How about a motion?
Motion to approve this.
All right, second?
Second.
Thank you. Davina seconded. All those in favor of adopting these policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. So we are up to other. I had something.
Yes, I do want to say something.
Yes.
In the parent involvement compact, this is just for Title I, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and this again is a required federal
Yep.
policy?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're just really sort of just updating it again,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
The one question I had was the compact that you have with families, right? How many parents participate whose kids are in Title I?
Do we have the compact signed?
The compact is posted on the school web pages. And unfortunately, one of our Title I principals just dropped out. So they're required to host a Title I meeting every year. It's like a 5-minute engagement. Ideally, they would be sharing the compact there, and there is on that, I'm trying to navigate so I can show you, so I can talk about what's on there. On the web pages, it has a link where they can give us some feedback. So that would be what I would see at the district level. People aren't typically doing it. The last time I checked, I had seen 1 response across 4 surveys, and they've been posted for over a year. So I don't know if we're not directing attention to it enough. I would say that we have I think we have some work to do in bringing together our, what's the name of the community dialogues that Erica leads?
Community partnership teams.
Community partnership dialogues with this Title I process, because I feel like we have robust conversations happening in one place and another place where they ought to happen, and we might not be, I think we could do better by synthesizing those.
Knowing that these are some of the most difficult families to have come in and have a conversation.
Well, and what's interesting is, so 3 of our schools are school-wide programs, which in that, in that context, every kid is a Title I kid. And so it's not necessarily the kids who are free reduced price lunch eligible, and it's not necessarily the kids who are struggling the most. It's a Title I school, and so all kids are. And in one school where we receive targeted assistance, it's a really narrow subset, and that actually creates another communication challenge, because like I'm having my annual meeting with just you, and you. Well, why us? Well,
yeah, right.
Can't really tell
and
you.
So I would say that we've got work to do in strengthening how we address that compact and how we engage with parents.
But it's not a natural first that we would come out to parents with because of Title I. I think the work that we're doing, which you see in the board report, which Jen talked about, is the place where we want to engage in reaching out to families and bringing them together. And
This just looks so prescriptive, though.
it very much is,
So it just seems like there's a lot on you to make sure that you reach these parents.
Yeah.
And you have these conversations, and you have a compact, and then it says they have to agree to these conditions, and like, how do you enforce something like that? So I just didn't know, I know it's a federal thing, so you don't have a lot to say on how it's written, but it just seems onerous.
It is a little
Worthy, but onerous, and how you do it, I don't know. But I think the community involvement, or the community engagement group.
Yeah, and some schools do when they send the contact told you have parents sign them,
Right.
send them in so that you have the agreement in writing.
Right.
Yep.
But that is a challenge, and it's a tough one to tackle, but I think it's important because these are the kids who are falling through the cracks.
Absolutely.
Just specify, remind us which schools are the school-wide Title I?
Yep, Mary Hogan, Shoreham, and Bridgeport are school-wide, and Salisbury receives targeted assistance. Salisbury, however, I expect all 4 of those to be school-wide programs next year. It's based on our FRL counts in the October census.
All right.
I motion we approve this.
Do we already do that?
Oh, we did.
We did, yeah, we're all set.
We're on other, yeah.
So we're up to other. I thought I'd just take a minute to talk about what's going on at the State House. You all may have gotten a VSBA letter today saying you really need to contact your state representative about something. You don't need to.
I don't have
But it in fact is regarding one of the 2 issues that we're kind of wrestling with right now, neither of which really has anything to do with our district. The first is lead testing and how that gets funded and carried out. We've already done it. We've already paid for it. So all we stand to gain is maybe some reimbursement for the work that we've done. The other thing is a bill that we're swapping back and forth with the Senate, all dealing with Act 46 forced mergers, and we're already through that. So that's kind of what's going on. And we're also spending a lot of time talking about the Agency of Education. It's a highly understaffed agency. Just as they seem to take a step forward in filling positions, they go two steps back. It's really challenging. It's really challenging for school districts to get the support they need from the Agency of Education. Yeah, it's challenging. They just lost their chief financial officer, who was an absolute gem, and she'd only been there for 2 years, or a year. She moved to a different state agency. So anyway, yes.
Are there state cuts in the Department of Ed, or is it just sort of?
They have been hit. It's a number of things. They are having trouble just filling. 80% of what they do is processing federal money, and just getting sort of the people who handle that function has been challenging. Probably pay scale, whatnot. Then we gave them a bunch of money to staff up a little bit for the implementation of Act 173, which is the big changes in special education. Again, they're having trouble attracting people at the pay scale that state offers, and so pay scales are being looked at. They've been hit with a lot of retirements, and then they have their own inner turmoil that has also caused some turnover. So it's been really challenging. And not quite sure what the solution is. But it's hard on folks, especially overseeing new initiatives like 173 and proficiency-based grading and graduation requirements and personalized learning plans, and then pre-K. So we're trying to be as initiative-free as possible, at least on the House side of things, with the exception of this lead testing, which is what it is.
Where do you think the 46 is going to go? I mean, this just can't go on forever.
Well, so the House passed a bill, the Senate took that and changed it. So we're going to come together in a conference committee and come up with something. Probably some districts will get a year. No one's getting more than a year, unless the judge says something differently, and it will have to happen. Yeah, it's when you think about the process we went through, it is you sort of go, what's the big deal? And I'll tell you, it's ugly in these last few bunch. They can't seem to come together. It's really they're in real conflict with themselves. It's amazing.
Just in 7 days cartoon.
Yes.
We're the ones sitting at the desk getting our work done.
Well, and now we're starting to see superintendents depart. from districts that can't seem to get anywhere. We're very lucky. We went through it beautifully, took advantage of everything, and here we sit today, cruising along.
That reminds me, quick question.
Yeah.
How long did the incentives, the financial incentives to towns, how many years does that go?
So we're at level 6 right now, right?
We're at 4.
6 cents? We're at 4 cents.
No.
We're at 6, we'll be
At 4.
no, we're in year 2, so
Yeah,
the next
FY20
one is
6
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we still have a 6-cent incentive, a 4-cent incentive, and a 2-cent incentive. Yeah. But the loss of the incentive means our tax rate goes up 2 cents each year.
And we still have our merger support grant as well, and I don't know if that's come up at all.
Not in terms of taking them away.
Okay, good.
Good.
I mean, the law said you got them in perpetuity, so that's supposed to stay that way. What's that?
You mean the small schools grant?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've called it the merger support
I
grant.
thought you meant the merger incentive.
No, yeah.
Although I did hear from somebody at the agency that there's a quirk in the small schools grant law that says that even if you merged and got the incentive, it's no longer a small schools grant, it's a merger incentive grant, but some of your small schools may still qualify under the new rules for the small schools grants.
You can double tap.
And the person from the agency who said that looked right at me and said, don't even try it. So I don't know if we have tried it or not, I didn't think so.
No comment.
All right, the last item on our agenda is an executive session, and I think we will hold a brief executive session just to update everybody on negotiations. So I would welcome a motion to go into executive session. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about in public session before we do that? Hearing none, a motion to go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations with teachers and support staff.
So
Troy, who's it? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yeah. All right, well, why don't we grab a cookie and while they pack up, and we'll go from there.